Good afternoon, Steelers Nation. It's time for the Week 5 preview show. Can't believe we're already a month into the season, man. Talking about your 3-1 Pittsburgh Steelers, set to take on the 2-2 Dallas Cowboys. The Fighting Jerry Joneses, an old school cross conference rivalry in primetime. Man, it doesn't get much better than that. So I'm excited to talk about this one. Y'all just know the drill. Going to talk through some injury stuff, some key matchups, detailing things I'll be watching for, and then just some notes just on like my scouting of the Cowboys over the past day or so. But just as always, please make sure you drop your score predictions in the comments. I always enjoy reading those. I'm also curious just on like your all's thoughts on primetime games in general. Do you like them? Do you dislike them? Are you tired of playing under the lights? Do you enjoy them? All those things. Just kind of curious. Me personally, like when I was a kid, like I loved like Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. It was just always something that I really enjoyed doing, watching the games in my basement. But as time has went on and the Steelers have been in so many primetime matchups, I don't know. It's just kind of lost a little bit of its luster for me, but I'm just curious on if you guys feel the same way. But if you could, make sure you like the video, sub to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, all that stuff. Just a free and easy way to support the channel, and I really appreciate it. So let's get started with some injuries here. Steelers a little bit banged up. In this one, they're going to come into the matchup without both their backup running backs. No Jalen Warren. Sounds like he's probably going to miss another week or probably two. No Cordero Patterson as well. Of course, unfortunately, he got banged up in that Indianapolis Colts game last week after, he was running really well. So kind of a bummer there. No Alex Highsmith as expected. From what I gather, it seems like Alex Highsmith is probably guaranteed to miss at least like 1 to 2 more weeks. But we'll see. I think I've heard some people speculate that it might be the Jets game that they're trying to get him back. And then no Mako Pruitt this week either. So the good news, the best news really of the week for the Steelers on the injury front is that they are going to get back Isaac Seumalo. You guys know, like, I'm pretty big fan of Seumalo as a player. I think that, his absence has been something that's really hurt the Steelers' offensive line early in the season. And I've been pretty transparent about that, the need to kind of get Spencer Anderson out of the lineup. But I'm really excited about getting Sam Allo back. Hopefully, he's feeling good physically. It sounds like all systems are going to be go there. He's going to be back at left guard, and I'm really excited to see what that looks like. I think it's going to help them out tremendously, really across the board. The other part of this is that Mason McCormick is going to be the starting right guard really for the rest of the season, I would imagine, barring some catastrophic disaster or anything like that or an injury. James Daniels unfortunately lost for the season. Really feel for James just because like Pro's Pro, who's playing, like I thought over the last couple of weeks, some really good ball and set for a massive contract extension in the contract in the offseason, given that he's an impending free agent. Tears his Achilles. It's just the worst part of sports. So my heart goes out to him for sure. I am like cautiously optimistic about McCormick just because I think that with Daniels, with them not getting an extension done before the season, we knew that this was a possibility that he could potentially be the right guard next season. Now they're getting like an early kind of exclusive look into these things. And I think that could be beneficial for them on a myriad of different reasons. I wrote about McCormick's debut on Steelers Now, but I thought there were some pretty good things. I think that he still looked like a good athlete on film. So I really liked that portion of it. The hand placement was really good, particularly in pass pro. Like you saw some flashes of independent hand usage, just refitting his hands. I thought he stalled out bull rushes, things like that. Just causes for concern for me is just like one, just like what does he look like in individual isolated pass protection reps? There wasn't a ton of that. They slid the protection his way, I'm assuming by design, which is a smart thing to do when you've got a rookie making his first start. But also just, I think the big thing with McCormick is like pad level is consistently bad. Like I don't really understand how to me it's hard to even imagine like playing that upright. Like he just has this real upright playing style that I think hurts him in terms of like being able to sustain blocks. But I mean, there were definitely some good things, some things to work on out of the debut. But this is big for him. I wrote about it. Like I said, this is pretty much like his audition to be the 2025 starter, to tell the Steelers like, hey, like I'm your guy next year. You can let Daniels walk, or if you can't afford him or whatever. Or do we need to talk about, getting another interior offensive lineman in the draft next year for agency, whatever. So I think it's a good situation. It's a huge opportunity for him to play well and also, start to develop that relationship with Zach Frazier. So I'm excited about that. Just some other things, from a Cowboys perspective, Both of the Dallas corners questionable to play. It sounds like Mike McCarthy, I think, said Trayvon Diggs was going to play. Kalen Carson, both those guys are questionable. I don't really know. Carson has a shoulder. Diggs didn't practice on Friday, but apparently he's still like set to play. Who knows with that? I think that that's probably Deron Bland, their other guy, who like I think might have led the NFL in interceptions last year. He's already dealing with an injury. Really, just like the thing is like across the board, Dallas is really, really banged up. No Brandon Cooks in this one, who's kind of their de facto wide receiver too. And then like the biggest news is like no Micah Parsons, no Demarcus Lawrence, like their two best defenders on defense. Huge. Obviously, Parsons is like one of those like game wreckers. Lawrence has been a really underrated for quite a while, but a fantastic run defender for a defense that, which we'll talk about, already doesn't stop the run very well at all. So huge. I mean, that's a good break for the Steelers. You take them where you can get them. But kind of want to talk about just the matchup in general, starting with like the Dallas offense, just with Dak in general. I think that Dak is a good quarterback for the most part. Does some things really well. He's off to a little bit of a slow start this season, but I think you can kind of watch the film and understand why for a couple reasons. One, this offense is dated. I mean, it is it's like a prehistoric feeling offense. There are not many easy buttons in this offense schematically. They don't use a lot of motion. They don't use a lot of play action. It's very gun heavy. They do some two back stuff under center, but they still don't work play action very well off of it. It's really a lot of, like reliant on Dak winning in the shotgun, throwing into tight windows. Next Gen Stats has a separation stat, and he's thrown into more tight windows this season than any other NFL quarterback. And I really think that that's a huge indicator of the skill talent on this Cowboys team. Like Jake Ferguson's a solid receiving tight end, can do some different things for you. CeeDee Lamb is a superstar, which I want to talk about him too, but there's just not a lot of perimeter talent. Now, when you talk about like Brandon Cooks being out, it was funny. Jerry Jones had a really funny interview this week. They're elevating this dude from the practice squad, and Jerry said that he had some Dez Bryant like personal qualities or traits. Just classic Jerry Jones that he's comparing a practice squad wide receiver that they're calling up for the first time this year to Dez Bryant. But that's the big thing is like the Steelers, they shouldn't feel really all that threatened by the non-CeeDee Lamb receivers on this team. To make matters even more difficult, they're starting two rookies on the offensive line. I think that's always a struggle. Tyler Guyton was the guy that I think was really toolsy, a fantastic athlete, a lot of length, but definitely someone who was raw, particularly in pass protection as it relates to like the technical aspects of the position. Cooper Beebe's been sliding inside to the pivot. I actually saw some really good things from Beebe last week on film against the Giants. But their interior offensive line, Tyler Smith, guy that I loved coming out of the draft. He's really morphed into a really solid player. Zach Martin, like perennial Pro Bowl type. Both those guys can generate like real movement in the run game. But just like I said, Dak's off to a little bit of a slow start, but he's somebody, man, like he can really spin it. He's like your kind of throwback pocket passer. He loves to, manipulate things at the line of scrimmage, like really good processor. He likes, he sets the protections, like he handles all that stuff, consistently gets him into advantageous play calls. He knows how to attack your defense, like especially like spot drop zone, which is concerning a little bit because the Steelers, prevalence for that on defense. But Dak really likes to attack between the numbers. Like he has no fear of throwing like back shoulders up the seams. He will, like I said, throw into tight windows, throw with anticipation. So all those things are kind of, things that he does well. He manipulates the pocket well as well. Not like a rushing threat by any means, but he does move around enough in the pocket to, avoid sacks. And I think the big thing that the Cowboys are going to probably try to do is they're going to try to get the ball out quick. Last week against the Giants, I think that Dak was 13 of 14 for a whole bunch of yards, 2 touchdowns when he got the ball out in 2.5 seconds or less. That's going to be the theme, right? Like they're not going to want to, put TJ Watt in a lot of advantageous situations. I'm sure they're going to try to run the ball, even though this is not a very good rushing team. They don't really necessarily have a back that necessarily creates a lot for himself or scares you. But I'm assuming that they're probably going to try to do some things, spread the Steelers out. One thing to note, and I've talked about this a lot on the channel, maybe not this year, but last year, the Steelers saw more empty personnel from opposing offenses than any other defense in the NFL. This is something that I think that they may lean into a little bit. The Colts did it a little bit last week and had some success just because the Steelers, like a lot of NFL defense, can be a little bit predictable when you go empty to them. So that's one of the ways that they like to get the other teams like to get the quick passing game going. And I think that that's something that the Cowboys could look into just because they don't have a lot going on offense really right now. They're kind of struggling to create some explosive plays. Dak's throwing short of the sticks a lot. But as it pertains to CeeDee Lamb, like there's really not anything that this dude doesn't do at a really high level. Calculated off the line of scrimmage, excellent versus press coverage. TA said that he didn't want to give it away, I guess, in terms of like whether Joey Porter will follow him. I really want to see that matchup just because I think it's strength on strength. But Lamb can line up outside. He could beat you as like a prototypical X receiver. Excellent on end breakers, slants, digs, knows how to create space for himself. Really, really freaking tough in the middle of the field. He's good after the catch as well. Like I said, just like not really any weaknesses in his game. One thing that Dallas will do is they'll move him inside to the slot. Like he can run choice routes. They'll try to get him on advantageous situations against linebackers and safeties. So you just really got to be very cognizant of where he's at all times. Of course, the Steelers defense kind of struggled a little bit out of the slot last week. Josh Downs had a really big week. The Steelers tried a number of different defenders. They got him matched up against a number of different guys, and they just didn't really have an answer. Well, CeeDee Lamb, a little bit different of a monster than Josh Downs. But, the Cowboys come into this one, I think they're 20th in EPA and success rate on offense. Like I said, it's been a slow start for them. Things were kind of ugly through the first couple of weeks of the season. They got things going a little bit more against the Giants last week. But speaking of things being ugly for the first couple weeks of the season, man, like I'm not going to lie. I think it was Wednesday, I went and watched the first two of the first three games that the Cowboys defense played this season, and I was like, man, this is rough. Like this looks like a really poorly coached team. Guys just getting blown off the ball, having struggles like fitting the run. They're a team that likes to stack the box, so they're a team that likes to get 7-8 guys near the box. I think it's been progressively increasing over the season because I just think that Zimmer's realized that he just doesn't have the horses up front to do like any two gapping or gap and a half. Like they've got to be gapped out in the front seven. But, their interior defensive line, like Mozzie Smith, Odigizua, I think I'm saying his name right, not run defenders. Mozzie Smith, he was awful. Like he had a really rough rookie season. And he was terrible for the first 3 weeks. He dominated last week against the Giants. No idea. It was one of the more bizarre performances that I can remember seeing in quite some time. So I don't know, like maybe he's turning a corner. We'll see. I didn't think Smith was like a terrible prospect. I didn't think he was a first rounder, but that's going to be key for them. Like, can he stack good performances? But like you go back and watch some of the performances early in the season from this defense, man, like guys have no clue where to be at all. Just very undisciplined. The Ravens a couple weeks ago, quarterback runs, like I think Lamar Jackson had like it was like 9 quarterback runs for like 70 something yards. And they just kept running like zone read escort, zone read. And like the Cowboys like acted like they had never seen it before. So that gives me optimism. They were a little bit better last week against the Giants. Of course, obviously the Giants offense, Ravens offense, completely different skill sets. And from a talent perspective, they had a little bit better answers against the zone read, but don't be surprised. Like if the Steelers get into this thing and they're like, hey, we feel like this is the week where we need to run Justin a dozen times and just see how things go. Especially, McCormick was a good puller coming out of college. I think Sam Allo's always been a good puller at the NFL level. So maybe they get into some gap scheme stuff and mix in some zone read stuff from the gun as well. Of course, Najee looking for a bounce back, 13 carries, 19 yards last week. They need to get the run game going. I tweeted this yesterday, but this is really a matchup. I don't know necessarily that it's going to be what defines the winner or loser in this game, but it's a gut check time for both of these units. And I'm specifically talking about the Steelers' run game and the Cowboys' run defense. Steelers come into this one 29th in rushing EPA per play, 25th in rushing success rate. And then the Cowboys defense comes in 32nd in rushing EPA per play, 26th in rushing success rate. one of these units feels almost destined to come out of this matchup on Sunday night feeling absolutely terrible about themselves, just because like it's one of those like loser leaves town matchup. Like if either side can't get it done this week, it's difficult to see them getting it done in this regard in the near future. So another thing to note, just kind of about the Cowboys defense. Schematically, Zimmer loves like the double A gap mug. They gave the Steelers a lot of issues, like his final year, I think that was with the Vikings. When you're starting some young offensive linemen like the Steelers are, I would anticipate that he's probably going to lean into some more like stunts up front, especially without Parsons and Lawrence, just to generate some pressure because they don't have necessarily the guys to win one-on-one right now with those guys out. So I would anticipate seeing a little bit of an uptick in blitzes. So they're top 10, I think, in blitz percentage right now. Fields has done a really good job against the blitz for the most part. He had the really unfortunate play last week against the Colts with the sack fumble, but he's been pretty good against the blitz. So I'm not too worried about that. But Zimmer, he's been around the game a long time. Like he knows how this thing works. I would anticipate too, like, don't be surprised. At least this is what I would do if I was the Steelers. If they were to get into some 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6s, like those are traditionally like passing situations in the NFL. If the Cowboys want to do all that double A gap mug stuff with their linebackers, don't be surprised that the Steelers just try to run it to the perimeter out of the gun. Maybe some sweep stuff, some pin and pull, potentially with Justin. Like that's a good way to attack the double A gap stuff is, run to the perimeter. So we'll see what that looks like, but I think, like I said, I think this is almost like a loser leaves town matchup. Like if your unit can't get it done on Sunday night out of those two units, like you're probably not going to feel very good about it. Just some other stuff with the Cowboys. You got some new linebackers in there. Eric Kendricks, he's a guy who came over from Minnesota. He's, been an adult in the room. I think Kendricks has actually like played better than I probably would have anticipated him playing, to be honest with you, just because I thought that he was probably washed, but he's been fine. Demarion Overshown from Texas, he missed like I think all of his, I guess it was his rookie year with an injury, but he was somebody that I kind of liked in college. Really rangy defender. Like this dude can cover a lot of ground. Great athlete. Their safeties, Malik Hooker. He's always been like an opportunistic guy in the back end. I don't think their safeties have played very well this season. I actually don't think their secondary in general has played very well this season either. Trayvon Diggs coming back from that injury. One thing that the Cowboys are doing, like they're playing a ton of off coverage. Like I've always kind of liked Diggs more when he was at the line of scrimmage, at least coming out like early in his career and just dating back to like the Bama days. He's got excellent ball skills. I think he's got long arms too. So I kind of liked him playing in press, but they're playing really far off. So they're going to give up some completions. They're playing a ton of cover 3. That's kind of their home base right now from a coverage perspective. They're going to give you some underneath completions. Like Justin has, I think, over the first month of the season, taking what the defense gives him in terms of like throwing short of the sticks, like just trying to do his best in terms of keeping the team on schedule from a passing perspective. But those are some things to watch for. Another just kind of like next gen stat that I saw that was like definitely backed up what I saw on film. The Cowboys this season have been atrocious just in terms of like tackling, just like poor technique, guys not rallying to the ball, taking bad angles. I think some of their secondary guys have made some business decisions just in terms of like whether they actually want to get in there and tackle. But you just like look at it, like the Cowboys have allowed like the 4th most rushing yards after contact in the league this season. I think that they're missing. I want to say, I'm trying to look at the numbers. Yeah, they've only converted on 84.6% of their tackle opportunities. That's this season. That's the 5th lowest rate in the NFL. I think last week alone, they missed 15 tackles. So this could be a good week to get some yards after the catch. It could be a good week for Pat Freiermuth, who's been really good in this regard. He had a big play last week after the catch on a scramble from Justin. So I think, maybe get him going, try to get him going over the middle of the field, see if he can make some of these guys miss and create some splash after the catch. So those are just some things that I would anticipate. Like I said, I think this one could be potentially a get right game for the Steelers rushing attack. We will see. I think that, especially if this is the defense that I saw over the first like couple weeks of the season, I think the Steelers actually have an advantage in the trenches here. We know Arthur Smith's going to run the ball ad nauseum, regardless if it's working or not. So it would be nice if they were more efficient on the ground than what they've been. But just kind of hitting on just the progress of Fields, man. Like I've been pretty transparent with like my thoughts on him over the course of, this start to the season. But, I talked about it in the video a couple of days ago that I posted on the channel as like the first quarter recap. But I think he's made really good progress. To me, he just looks like a guy who's playing really confident right now, and that's been refreshing as someone who's like watched him play a ton. Just going back and studying him over the summer, I didn't always feel like that jumped off his film. And I feel like right now, like he's playing with a level of swag, a level of confidence in himself. That's really been good to see. He's provided the Steelers competent quarterback play. Just as a, I went back and watched that 2016 Steelers Cowboys game. That was a really like heartbreaker, man. Big Ben had the fake spike with like 40 something seconds left. The reason why I'm bringing this game up is not to traumatize you guys, but it's kind of funny listening to the broadcast, and it's definitely a little bit different parallel. But listening to the broadcast, like that was when Dak was a rookie, and they were still, I think, there was a little bit of a question about whether the Cowboys would go back to Tony Romo or if they would stick with the young guy and go with Dak. And that Pittsburgh game was kind of like the nail in the coffin to that debate. Like Dak played really well. In that one, he made some big time throws. Of course, like it helped. They had the screen pass to Zeke Elliott. And Steelers defense couldn't really stop anything that day. But I say that because like this could be, a primetime game. Island games do a lot to shift like the national media narrative or landscape. I don't necessarily know that they mean a lot more to like from a coaching staff perspective, but this could be one of those games where if like Justin plays well and continues to trend upward. I think this could be like the game where, Tomlin hasn't been really wanting to, name a starter necessarily just because he hasn't had to. Like Russ hasn't like fully practiced a lot or any really at this point. But I think that this could be the week where it's like, okay, like he goes out there and plays well. The Steelers move to 4-1. This is our guy. Like for the foreseeable future, we're gonna, we think that he gives us not only the best chance to win right now, but it also gives us, another 11, 12 games to properly evaluate him over the course of the season. And like I said, I think it would be great if the Steelers could go out and like add some more talent from an offensive weaponry perspective, especially because like the Steelers are right now, they're asking Justin to do some things that I don't think that they brought him here necessarily to do. I think the idea was that they were going to bring him in and kind of start to rebuild him from ground zero, get his confidence back, take some of the load off his shoulders from being like the guy in Chicago. Now, like he's really been the best part of their offense, like just in terms of like the things he's doing as a passer, the improvements he's made there, but also like he's been doing some outstanding stuff out of structure, which has always been something he's capable of. But he's really kept the offense afloat, especially like over parts of like the past 2 weeks, which I've been really excited about. So we'll see what that looks like. But I think could be a cool parallel just in terms of maybe this is the week that Justin finally like cements and takes the job and kind of runs with it. So I'm excited to see that. I think there's a lot of interesting kind of developments with this game, and it's one of those where I feel like you feel really good if the Steelers are able to come out of this one at 4-1. I think that would be a great development. Continue to be atop the AFC North, all those things. But I really appreciate you guys tapping in with me. As always, just really appreciate all the support for the channel. If you're wanting like more exclusive access, more perks, all that stuff, please consider becoming a member to the channel. This week in the members only section film room, we dove into some of the struggles that the Steelers had last week from a defensive perspective. The matchup was Shane Steichen, how the Colts were able to exploit some of the things in the passing game, particularly when the Steelers went cover 3, which I'm sure things that the Cowboys will at least try to take some things away from. So if you're interested in kind of like more deep dive stuff, understanding the why of why certain things are happening, taking place during the games on Sundays, be sure to check that out. Like I said, it's really cheap. I wanted to make it as affordable as possible to, not exclude anybody. It's the price of a small coffee. So, if that interests you, be sure to check that out. Also, I'll mention this during the lengthy like first quarter recap video. First off, I really want to thank everybody for the feedback on that. If you haven't checked that out, please do drop me your feedback. It seems like the feedback was overly positive. You guys are interested in that. So the plan for me will be to do that midway through the season. We'll do another kind of check-in. We'll talk about just some storylines, guys trending up, guys trending down, what's going right, what's going wrong, kind of like more big picture analysis. more of like a podcasty type vibe. But I did enjoy putting it together. I put a lot of work into it. I'm glad to see, like, you guys found at least some level of enjoyment out of it, took something from it. That's all great. But those things are cool. But I mentioned this on the video too. Channel sponsor Homage, they're coming out with some really, really cool designs. They sent all the affiliates kind of a heads up of things that are going to get dropped in October. Like, I can't show them right now, but some of the t-shirt designs that they got are fire. So hoping I can get a giveaway set up, or maybe I'll just buy one to give away for the channel. But I'm definitely going to be copping some new stuff. So definitely check that out. I'll leave the link in the description for that as well. But as always, I will be back. Given that it is a Sunday night game, obviously, I think you guys can probably anticipate that the recap for this game will be up Monday morning, probably fairly early. Definitely before like noon or anything like that. My goal is to get it out like 10:30, 11-ish. But there's just no sense in like, recording something at 2 a.m. that the algorithm's just going to completely dismiss. So we'll have the recap up. Just again, drop me your comments, score predictions, like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that stuff. Greatly appreciated on my end. And you guys have a good rest of your weekend. Peace and love.